Good evening, Mayor. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Mary Dellinger.
What do you do for a living?
I am a detective at the Queen City Police Department.
May we call you detective throughout this proceeding?
Absolutely.
What kind of crimes do you investigate?
A little bit of everything from murder to burglaries.
Have you been involved in many murder investigations?
Yeah, I have. I've been involved in a lot.
Were you working July 20th, 2014?
Yes.
What were you doing that day?
Well, as a detective, I was doing regular patrols like just any other officer, and I was waiting for dispatch to radio me and say that there was a crime scene I needed to go to.
Did you get any calls from dispatch that day?
Yeah, I was working the 7 p.m. shift on July 19th that ended at 7 a.m. and I got a call around 2 a.m. on July 20th.
What was the call in reference to?
I was dispatched to 918 Spring Street because of a possible arson.
What city is this in?
Queen City.
What did you do next?
I drove over to the area, and since several other officers were already there and already responding to the scene, I decided to circle around the area around the home.
What were you doing as you circled that area?
I was informed that when Megan Eigenbrot called, that she's the owner of the house, who called 911. She told that it was her ex.
Objection, Your Honor. We believe any information coming out of this would be hearsay.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This isn't being offered to prove the truth of the matter, sir. We're just letting the jury know how the detective performed his investigation, so it would not be hearsay.
We can find out about the course of the investigation, what the detective did as far as collect evidence, investigate fingerprints, things like that, without hearing what Megan Eigenbrot said about who may or may not have burned down the house.
I'm going to overrule it for now, but tighten it up a little bit. Let's move on.
Yes, Your Honor. Let me ask my question again, if I may. What were you doing as you circled the area around the crime scene?
I was looking for Josh Wallace, which was Megan Eigenbrot's ex-boyfriend. He was suspected of throwing a Molotov cocktail through her window.
So when you were circling the area, what did you find?
I spotted Josh Wallace walking alongside Dale Earnhardt Boulevard.
How far away from the crime scene is this?
Just around the corner.
How did you know that it was Josh Wallace?
I entered his name into my police-to-police system and was able to pull up a picture and description of him.
What did you do next?
Well, next, after I spotted him, I called the stop in, I radioed for backup, and I pulled up next to him, got out, and asked him for identification.
How did he respond?
He said his identification was in his wallet, so I asked for permission to retrieve it, and he consented. Obviously, I wanted to check his identification and make sure that this actually was Josh Wallace, and it was.
What did he say that he was doing there at the time?
He said he was just walking home.
What was the defendant's appearance like when you found him?
He looked really messy, really dirty. His shirt was ripped at the bottom. He had muddy pants and shoes. He had alcohol in his breath, and his clothes just reeked of gas.
What did you do after checking the defendant's identification?
Well, I let him know we were investigating the fire and asked for his consent to search his person. He hesitated, but he consented.
What did your search reveal?
He had a cell phone and cigarettes in his pocket, and he had a flashlight, a red lighter, an empty Steel Reserve 21 beer can, those were in his backpack.
What happened after your search?
I asked him to come to the police station so I could interview him.
How did he respond?
Again, he hesitated, but he complied after a while.
What time was this?
3 a.m.
Who conducted the interview back at the station?
I did.
What did you talk about?
I talked about the fire and what he was doing before I found him. We also talked about his relationship with Megan.
How did he characterize that relationship?
He referred to her as his girlfriend the entire time I was talking to him. He repeatedly said just how much he loved her and how he would never hurt her.
how did the defendant say he was involved in this case?
He denied any involvement in it, but I did find it really suspicious that when I asked if he was ever in the military, he immediately denied knowing anything about explosives, even though I'd only told him we were investigating the fire, not anything about a Molotov cocktail.
Why would this be suspicious?
Led me to believe that he knew a lot more about the fire than he was letting on.
What else did you learn during your investigation, or during your interview?
He said he'd been at Megan's house earlier that evening visiting his dog, but he had left around 10 or 11 to go meet a friend for some drinks.
Where did he claim to have gone after he left your house?
He said he went to the Three Monkeys bar.
How did he get there?
Well, since he doesn't have a car or a license, he told me that night that he walked.
Who did he say he was meeting?
A guy named Robert, but he was unable to provide me with any more information at that point.
Did you ever get a hold of this Robert?
Yeah, we eventually learned that, or he eventually came into the station about 3 months after the fire, and he said that he had important.
Objection, Your Honor. Any statement from Robert would be an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of matters.
In response?
Again, this isn't, he just said that he had important information. We don't care if it was important or not. It's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
If I may, Your Honor, I was anticipating that we were about to hear what that information was, and I think we were.
Okay. Well, if we get into what the information is, then we'll address that. If it's just that he had information, then
Thank you, Your Honor.
overruled.
Okay. What was his full name, or what information did he provide you with?
Just that he was with the defendant that night.
Your Honor, I'll renew my objection at this point.
Again, Your Honor, there will be what appears to be hearsay coming from the defendant, but we are letting the jury know that a sufficient investigation was conducted, and this testimony is going to show the jury that it was a sufficient investigation, not being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. At least not in this specific instance. If another instance does come up, we'll be happy to address that at that time.
What is the testimony going to be?
The testimony here is just that he was with the defendant on the night of the incident, and that he offered the defendant a ride home.
Your Honor, they can establish that they have conducted a sufficient investigation by simply saying that they have interviewed the witness. Now, we do plan to present this witness, but we won't characterize that in our light as our witness when he is here to testify. We can hear that from him. They can cross-examine on it. Detective Dillinger should not be allowed to characterize that testimony in a manner favorable to the state through hearsay evidence.
I'm going to overrule that at this time. You can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What information was Robert Saunders able to provide you with?
That he was with the defendant that night until just before close, and that when Robert offered the defendant a ride home, the defendant refused and said he was going to walk home.
How else was the defendant able to corroborate his story that he was at the bar?
That's it. Just his friend's testimony that Robert gave 3 months after the fact. I asked for a receipt, and the defendant said he paid in cash and didn't get a receipt.
What time did Josh Wallace say that he left the bar?
He said he was there until they closed at 2 a.m.
What time were you dispatched to the scene of the fire?
A little after 2 a.m., probably 2:10 or so.
What time did you find Josh Wallace walking near the scene of the crime?
It was around 2:42.
What did you do next in your investigation after speaking with Josh?
I went back to the scene of the crime at 918 Spring Street.
What did you do there?
When I arrived, one of the firefighters asked me to come and looked at what was believed to be evidence of the firebomb. So I went and I was showed some green-colored pieces of glass. The glass would have been evidence of the firebomb, but while we were there, the fire ignited in the attic, and we were forced to evacuate. After it was extinguished again, we were unable to find the glass.
What did you do next?
searched the exterior of the house next door, which is 915 Spring Street,
Why?
because that's where Mr. Wallace lived prior to moving in with Megan.
What did you find while searching the scene?
I found empty Steel Reserve 21 cans in Megan's backyard, and a gas canister and a crawl space under the house next door, the 915 Spring Street.
How are those things relevant to this case?
Well, we believe the cause of the fire to be a Molotov cocktail, so we're going to look at a gas can near the scene of the fire, pretty closely, especially since it was found under the old house of our prime suspect. And this canister in particular had fresh knuckle marks on it, and even though it was empty, the smell of the gas in the area was just very, very strong.
What is the significance of the smell of gasoline?
It's just more evidence pointing to the can being the one used to fill the Molotov cocktails.
What about the Steel Reserve cans?
I found a Steel Reserve can just like the ones in the backyard in the defendant's backpack that night, or when I searched him earlier.
What did you do after you finished up with the gas can?
I continued to search the area, focusing now on Miss Eichenbrock's backyard.
Can you describe that backyard to the jury?
Yes, I can. It was a pretty spacious backyard. It backed up into a wooded area.
What was this wooded area like?
It was thick with briars, so you really couldn't get through anywhere back there from Miss Eichenbrock's backyard. But over on 915 Spring Street, where the gas can was, the woods were thinner, and there was actually a path that you could walk down.
What did you do next?
Well, I went back over to the backyard next door, and I found that path, like I just said, and I ended up walking down it.
What was the path like?
It was just a dirt path, and it was littered with several Coca-Cola bottles.
What kind of Coke bottles were there?
They were glass Coke bottles that had a green tint to them. They looked just like the glass I found earlier in the house.
Where did this path lead?
It led all the way to Dale Earnhardt Boulevard, the road where I found the defendant on the night of the fire.
How close was the end of this path to where you had originally found the defendant on the night of the arson?
It wasn't far at all. It was about 100 yards, about half a block.
What did you do after you finished up at the scene of the crime?
I applied for a search warrant to search Wallace's apartment.
Why?
He was our prime suspect. Everything at this point was pointing to him.
Were you able to get one?
I guess I was.
When did you execute this search warrant?
Later that afternoon, around 4:40.
How'd you go about executing it?
Well, he lives at 114 South Main Street in Queen City, which is also known as Loretta's apartment. I've been there before doing other search warrants, that type of area. We went to the
Objection,
manager's
Your Honor, other
office.
search warrants unrelated to this case are not relevant.
Any response?
I would like to hear the objection again.
He objected to other search warrants being irrelevant. She was testifying about serving other warrants.
That's fine, we'll move on.
Okay, sustained.
Move to strike.
Yes.
So what did you do after you went to the front office of the apartment complex?
I went to the manager's office and asked him to bring a key in case no one answered the door.
What did you do next?
We went to Wallace's apartment and knocked several times and announced we had a search warrant, but no one came and answered.
What did you do?
After knocking for about 5 minutes, we asked the manager to listen, and he did, using his key.
What did you find inside?
Found Wallace. He was sitting in his living room chair, staring straight ahead.
What did he do when you came inside?
I told him that he had a search warrant, and he became very, very argumentative, raising his voice at me.
What did you do with him?
Well, we asked him to step outside so that we could conduct our search.
What did your search uncover?
A red backpack, a flashlight, red lighter, 2 cell phones.
Did anything seem suspicious?
I mean, the lighter, of course, we were investigating an arson, and the lighter could have been the one used to light the Molotov cocktails. And flashlight used to help him gather the gas can from under the house and find the bottles on the path. But it was the cell phones in particular that I found suspicious.
What was suspicious about the cell phones?
They're separate from their batteries.
Why would this be suspicious?
Miss Eigenbrot was receiving strange texts from Wallace immediately before the fire. So we thought he might have been trying to delete messages or even trying to disable any type of GPS on his phone.
What else did you find in the apartment?
The clothes that Wallace was wearing earlier.
What condition were they in?
The pants were hanging up in the shower and were wet, like they had just been washed. Shoes and the shirt were on the floor.
What did you do with this evidence?
Well, we collected the shoes, the backpack, flashlight, lighter, cell phone, and clothes, and we sent the shoes and the lighter to the crime lab to be tested for accelerants.
What were the results of this test?
The shoes weren't able to be analyzed because of an issue with the packaging. The lighter was determined to be a functioning V-light, red lighter containing butane.
Did you run any other tests?
Yes, we had debris from Miss Eigenbrot's bedroom and a soil sample from beneath Miss Eigenbrot's window tested for accelerants.
What were the results of these tests?
The debris from the bedroom failed to show the presence of ignitable liquid residue. That could be attributed to burning up, but the soil from below the window showed hydrocarbons consistent with residual gasoline.
Who did all the physical evidence point to?
Josh Wallace.
And who had motive to cause harm to Megan Eigenbrot?
Josh Wallace.
Who was found right around the corner from Megan's home right after the fire started?
Josh Wallace.
Of all the pieces of evidence that you found in this case, what would you attribute to coincidence?
All the evidence pointed to Josh Wallace. I don't see how any of this could have been coincidence.
No further questions at this time?
All right,
Please answer
any
any questions the
questions?
defense may have.
Happens to me all the time. Detective Dillinger, you would say that cases like this, cases involving the death of a young teenage girl, you would probably say that cases like this are some of the more difficult cases that you deal with in your job as a detective, wouldn't you?
Difficult as in emotionally, yeah.
Yes. But that's part of the job, isn't it?
I mean, absolutely, that's part of the job. You get used to it.
And now, the call came in around 2 a.m., isn't that right?
Around
Oh, around 2 a.m.
2:10.
Okay, all right. And when you got that call, you heard that there was a young teenage girl trapped inside of a burning house, correct?
I mean, give or take some of the elaborations that
Well, when you heard that made you emotional. You already said that, right?
I would not say that made me emotional right then.
Well, you just said that this is some of the more difficult cases because of the emotion, right?
It is indeed, but
Now, at the time when you found out this case, what this case involved, you would probably say that you were determined to find the right person who did this, wouldn't you?
in every case, we find the person that the evidence points to, and like in this case, the evidence pointed exactly. We found the person. We found Josh Wallace.
Found it. You were determined to find the right person.
Yeah, we found the right person.
And even though you were determined to find the right person, you didn't investigate anybody else but Josh Wallace, did you?
I investigated the person with every single piece of evidence. pointed to. I investigated
Detective,
the person.
yes or no? Did you investigate another person besides Josh Wallace?
No, I investigated the person that did it. I investigated Josh Wallace. I
So-
investigated the person that every single piece of evidence pointed to. There was no need.
So the answer to my question is no, you did not investigate anybody else but Josh Wallace. Detective, the answer to my question is no. You did not investigate anybody else.
No, I didn't need to. Everything pointed to Josh.
Now, you hauled Josh Wallace into the station about an hour after you got the call, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You called Josh Wallace you hauled him into the station about an hour after you got the call, right?
Give or take. I mean, mostly.
You
mostly
interviewed him
take
until
about-
about 5 o'clock in the morning, isn't that right?
About 4:45.
All night. During that interview, you told Josh that Josh told you he was at the victim's house earlier that night, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, he did.
But he told you he left before the fire started, did
He said he left around 10 or 11. Yeah.
he? He told you that at the time of the fire, he was at a place called the Three Monkeys.
I mean, he told me that.
He told you he was with a man named Robert at the Three Monkeys, isn't that right?
He told me that. I didn't believe him.
Even though you were determined to find the right person, you have never been to the Three Monkeys bar, have you?
I've been called to the Three Monkeys bar before. I mean, absolutely. I have been to the Three Monkeys bar before.
But you never went out there to investigate Josh's story, did you?
I didn't need to.
Never talked to the bartender?
I did not need to.
Never checked the security camera footage?
Didn't need to. Everything pointed to Josh.
Never called the manager on the phone to see if he remembered seeing Josh?
Did not need to. Everything pointed to Josh.
And even though you were determined to find the right person, you never tried to track down Robert to corroborate his story, did you?
So when Josh came in, what he told us is that he was with a man named Robert. That was it. He gave us no other descriptions. We had absolutely nothing to go out on, nothing to, we didn't have a last name, we had nothing there. So,
But you never went to the Three Monkeys to see if they knew anybody named Robert, did you?
yeah, at that point, didn't need to.
Now, found a gas can around the house, isn't that correct?
Oh, yes, sir.
You thought the gas can could attribute to the fire, isn't that correct?
I mean, absolutely, this is
That's why you had the gas can
Objection,
tested.
Your Honor. Would you please ask counsel to let the witness finish speaking before you start speaking over her?
Let the witness finish her answer and then you can follow up.
My apologies.
Would you please read that?
You thought this gas can could have contributed to the fire, right?
I mean, absolutely, this is a Molotov cocktail arson case. I mean, gas is used to make Molotov cocktails. It's the accelerant in it.
Well, it can be one accelerant, right?
I mean, can be one accelerant. This
There
is
are.
gas.
There are other accelerants, correct?
I mean, there are other catalysts in this world, yes.
For example, you could use grain alcohol to make a Molotov cocktail, isn't that correct?
Yeah, you can use certain types of grain alcohol. Yeah, you can.
But nonetheless, you found Uncle Mark's on this gas can, you figured you'd have it tested for DNA.
I did. I did.
We don't have the results of that DNA test in this courtroom today, do we?
We don't, and the reason that we don't is because DNA is really finicky. You know, when you send off DNA to be tested, you have to get a good sample, perfect sample, and even then, sometimes the DNA doesn't really mesh. And so it's not that we don't have a DNA sample; we just didn't get a complete DNA sample today in the courtroom. We just didn't get a complete DNA report it came back with. You know.
Now, even though you tested for DNA, never tested gas can for fingerprints, did you?
I sent it off to be tested. They were in charge
Detective Dillinger, do you remember making a statement in this case, filing a report?
I do.
Do you recognize that report, if I showed it to
Yes.
you? Judge, permission to approach the witness?
Yes.
Detective Dillinger, did you say that that is a fair and accurate copy of your report?
I would indeed.
Everything you said in that report is truthful?
Yeah.
Where in that report do you say that you sent that gas can to be sent tested for fingerprints?
I didn't just say that just then. I said that I sent it off and they're in charge of testing it for things.
Where is that in your report?
I sent it to the state of Carolina's crime lab for testing.
For testing
Yeah.
of DNA, correct?
Yeah.
Of DNA, not fingerprints, correct?
I just said that they were in
You don't
charge
say
of
anything about
testing it.
fingerprints in a gas can in that report, do you?
Again, all I just said was that they were in charge of the testing.
Regardless, we don't have the results of those fingerprints in court here today, do we?
Listen,
We'll move on. You found beer cans outside the house.
I did indeed.
Never took pictures of the beer cans?
Hmm?
You never took pictures of the beer cans?
I took pictures of the beer cans.
We don't have those pictures here in court today, do we?
I gave all of my pictures, all of my evidence to the prosecution, and what they do with it is up to them. To decide. I turned over all the evidence that I have to them.
Never tested the beer cans for DNA?
Did not.
Never tested them for fingerprints?
I did not.
Those could have been anybody's beer cans behind that house, couldn't they?
I mean, you know, when you find the Steel Reserve 21 cans, and then the same time you find Josh Wallace with the Steel 21 Reserve, it's quite a thing, isn't it?
You found green Coke bottles also behind the house, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You suspected these green Coke bottles could have been used to make a Molotov cocktail thrown in this case, didn't you?
I mean, absolutely. It's the glass that I saw in the house as well.
Never took pictures of these green Coke bottles.
I did take pictures.
We don't have those pictures in court here today, do we?
I just told you, counsel, that I gave all of my evidence, all the pictures to the prosecution. What they do with that evidence is up to them. I have nothing to do with that. I turned it over. If they wanna present those, it's up to them.
Even though you were determined to find the right person, never tested that Coke bottle for DNA, did you?
I did not test it for DNA.
Even though you were determined on the right person, you never tested that Coke bottle for fingerprints, did you?
I found the right person. I didn't need to test it for DNA.
Now, you spoke with the owner of 915 Spring Street, correct?
I did.
That's the house next door, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
There are other houses surrounding Megan's house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Never spoke to the owners of any of those houses, did you?
Yes, sir, I did. I spoke to a woman. She, what we believed had a missing gas can, and it was later found out that that gas can was not actually missing. But we had officers all out there talking.
Dillinger, I want to point you back to that report you made. Where in that report do you point to the woman with the gas can? That's not in your report, is it? Detective Dillinger, that's not in your report, is it?
Listen, at this point, I'm just gonna go it.
We'll move on, Detective Dillinger.
Thanks.
You said that you took pictures of Josh Wallace's clothes that night, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
You said that they were covered in mud, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have pictures of any of those clothes in the courtroom here today, do we?
Again, I reiterate what I've been saying. I turned over all of my evidence, all of the pictures to the prosecution. The reason, what they do with those pictures and that evidence is completely up to them. I have nothing to do with that.
You took soil samples below the window that night, didn't you?
Yes.
But you never took soil samples along the path to see if the mud on the clothes matched the soil on the path, did you?
No. Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
You didn't do that.
Okay.
It's another thing.
question again?
You never took the mud on the path
No, I didn't. I really didn't.
and compared it to the mud on the clothes to see if the soil samples matched, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, you are aware that Tammy's father's name is Chad, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Josh Wallace told you that Chad was behind on his child support, didn't he?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
What is your response?
The statement by a party opponent.
This would be hearsay within hearsay. Not only is it a statement by a party opponent, but any information that he has on it would have been heard from a third party.
Well, if it's a statement by the defendant, then it's not a statement by a party opponent for you. So is there another exception to hearsay?
Your Honor, regardless, we don't feel that it's all for the truth of the matter, certainly just for the fact that the detective Dillinger failed to follow up.
And what is the statement that is being,
There are back child support payments due, and I can move on if this is necessary.
I'll overrule it for now, but let's see where it goes.
You are aware that Josh Wallace is behind, that Chad, Tammy's father, was behind on child support payments, isn't that correct?
Listen, I was told that. I had no way of knowing that.
You're aware that Josh had been violent, or you're aware that
That Josh-
Chad had been violent towards Megan before, aren't you? Aren't you aware of that?
Again, I was told that. There was nothing to really back that up.
Even though you were
Objection,
determined,
Your Honor, we'd like to renew our objection from earlier, as far as, this is going towards third-party guilt. It's just mere conjecture, and there's no other evidence besides some hearsay saying that there was a motive, nothing tying him to evidence or anything tangible.
Response?
Your Honor, we're simply showing that Detective Dillinger did not follow up with Chad, and that is my next question. You never questioned Chad, you never talked to Chad. Just like the Three Monkeys, it's another witness that wasn't involved out there.
I'm gonna overrule it based on that. If they get further down the road of this third-party guilt thing, you can re-object. But if it's just simply another person you didn't talk to, then that's gonna be permissible.
Yes, Your Honor.
You never interviewed Chad, did you?
I didn't have any need. Everything pointed to Josh Wallace. There's no need to go. No need.
Now, when you picked Josh up that night, he voluntarily allowed you to search his person, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
But you said that he appeared hesitant in your testimony earlier today, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Where in that statement that you provided do you say that he appeared hesitant? It's not in your statement, is it?
Excuse me. 1 second,
I'll
please.
direct you to paragraph 4 on the first page. That's not in your statement, is it?
Wallace hesitated, but ultimately started pulling items out of his pocket and laying them on the top. So
Now,
yes, it is in my statement.
he voluntarily consented to you being searched, to you searching him, didn't he?
Hesitantly, but
He voluntarily went to the station with you, didn't he?
Again, hesitantly. He was not as willing on that one.
And you told him he was free to go at any time, didn't you?
He was not under arrest. He was free to leave at any time that he wanted to.
And even still, he stayed until 5 o'clock in the morning to answer your questions, didn't he?
He stayed until about 4:45, and then, yeah, he stayed.
During the interview, Josh adamantly denied knowing anything about the fire.
Objection, hearsay.
Response?
Your Honor, again, this goes to the frame of mind of the detective. It's not all the truth of the matter, sir.
Is it even a statement? Just that he adamantly denied it?
Yes.
I'll overrule that.
Detective, Josh adamantly denied knowing anything about the fire.
And then when I
Prior
asked him,
interview. Isn't that correct?
And then when I asked him if he had been in the military, he just completely went off and said, I don't know anything about explosives, but I had never told him that there were explosives involved in
Any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. What kind of marks did you find on the gasoline handle, on the gas canister's handle?
Knuckle marks.
What were the results of the accelerants test that you performed on the soil sample below Megan's window?
Positive. For gasoline residue, which, the gas can.
Why didn't you investigate other people?
I didn't need to. Everything pointed to Josh Wallace.
Why didn't you investigate Chad?
I didn't need to. There was no evidence to support Chad. Everything pointed to Josh.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, witness may step down. Does the state have any further witnesses?